Here's what you need to know about the full release of Beyond the Wire. Brutal chaos, historical map design, and believable audio make up some of the best features of Beyond the Wire, but the game's largest selling point is that it's one of the only large-scale player warfare games set in World War I. And that outside of Verdun, Tannenberg, and Battlefield 1, there really isn't anything else. Sadly, this is for good reason, because simply put, World War I just isn't the popular era. It doesn't have the greatest range of weapons, and much of its weapon variety comes from experimental weaponry that historically was never used, or was used late in the war, and so naturally you'll see very little weapon variety in this game. There are very few machine guns, and certainly no compact ones, and the main weaponry consists of single-shot rifles, pistols, and melee weapons. On top of that, the game commits to realism and is a gritty, brutal FPS. And this in itself is a niche. So it's like a niche inside of a niche, making it only appealing for a small subset of the gaming community. Beyond the Wire's obvious counter would be that it's newer and has a graphical advantage. But the same developer of Verdun and Tannenberg is just about to drop Isonzo, a game set on the Italian front of World War I, which will likely make things even harder on the new milsim. That is not to say Beyond the Wire is bad, it's just set in a small market with little but very capable competition. Verdun and Tannenberg also perform better at low pops since these games have bots, making a more playable experience, be it against stupid opponents with aimbot. Beyond the Wire, on that hand, has often struggled to fill up even one server and currently struggles to fill up 2 to 3 at peak moments. Granted, with 100 players a lobby, that is no small feat, but since this is the entire selling point of the game, it shows a real problem. Verdun and Tannenberg have similar issues, but have been out for years, and they're at far less risk of sudden changes. It's also ironic that the best weapon in this shooter game is arguably not a gun, but any melee weapon you can get your hands on. Outside of straight up running towards a trench through open fields or forest areas, you'll spend most of your time in the pesky trenches or cramped up bunkers of the era, and this means that enemies are bunched up. As I said before, most will only have single-shot rifles, so if they miss their first shot, you pretty much have free reign on who you choose to turn into a human shish kebab first. Beyond the Wire's map and sound design is pretty good, but the maps have quite a few bugs, and the music and sound overall can be glaringly loud sometimes. The time to kill is brutal since the nature of the weapons means that you kind of have to die with one shot most of the time, or you'd be an immortal god. The game has a decent compass, but it's a shame it doesn't display the objectives on it, since that would make navigating much easier. Beyond the Wire, like any tactical shooter, depends heavily on communication. But sadly, the player count pretty much means there is often little of it. But when it is there, the game feels so much more rewarding. Holding a trench, calling out enemies, and yelling for a medic because you've been shot in the left nutsack is probably some of the best fun you'll have in this game. It's pronounced medic, by the way. Speaking about medics is that you should play to your role. If you're a medic, then that means you should spend your time reviving and healing other players. You should also try to avoid team killing, since getting banned from a single server on Beyond the Wire is essentially the same as being banned from the game, since there are that few populated servers. Oh yeah, and artillery obliterates in this game. Simple as that. So Beyond the Wire is a game with glaring problems, real competition, and my opinion is to wait to see how Isonzo does later this month before jumping the gun on this one. However, if you are already getting Isonzo and want something else, or don't want Isonzo because fuck Italy or whatever, then by all means grab up Beyond the Wire and knife away. Just don't expect this to be the glorious trench warfare simulator you've always wanted, because really it's not. It's a fun game with promise, but I don't see how it can ever get over its major challenges in a meaningful way, so I would only get it if you're just looking to run around some World War I maps and shoot and stab some things. That's it for today, and if you want to know what settings to use in Beyond the Wire, then click the video right here.